start the meeting today, the Planning Commission meeting of June 3rd, 2021. It's 3 p.m. Can I get a motion to approve the order of agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The regular meeting minutes of May 4th, 2021. If you've had a chance to look those over, I'd take a motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, there will be no brown bag on Wednesday, June 16th. There will be no brown bag. All right, following item is continued to September 9th. That's item number 1 on our agenda. That is moved to September 9th, not September 7th. We get messed up with Labor Day again and the commission meetings, so we will be on a Thursday that week. Then also item number 2, the commercial zone at 5652 36th Avenue South will be continued until our next meeting, July 6th. And there will be no presentations by staff on either one of these items, and no action will be taken by this commission. Is there by chance anybody in the audience that was here to comment on those items? All right, seeing none. Let's see. First of all, before we move on, I'd like to recognize Maggie. Maggie is Maggie Squire. Maggie won't be presenting any cases today, but I think Maggie's here. I saw her. Her last day is tomorrow, and it's been great having you here. You're not going too far away. Or wait, you are going far away. How far? Denver. To Denver. Geez, you're breaking the precedent of people going to Moorhead, West Fargo, Horace. Well, good luck. It's been fun having you here, and your presentations have been excellent. So thanks for all your hard work. All right, moving on to item 3 on the agenda. A hearing on the application requesting a conditional use permit to allow off-premise advertising on Lot 1, Block 1, Urban Plains by Brandt, 3rd edition. Kylie.
Good afternoon. Item number 3 is titled Urban Plains by Brandt, 3rd edition, and is located at 5616 26th Avenue South. The applicant, John Cram, is seeking a conditional use permit to allow off-premise advertising on Lot 1, Block 1, Urban Plains by Brandt, 3rd edition. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit in order to allow off-premise advertising signs, which currently requires a conditional use permit under the current conditional overlay ordinance 5153. The application proposes a sign on the property with a sign face of 300 square feet and a height of 35 feet. The sign is proposed to have 2 digital faces facing Veterans Boulevard. Staff has reviewed the application and based on the conditional use permit criteria of the LDC has found that 4 of the 6 criteria are not being met. Criteria 1 asks if the proposed conditional use complies with all applicable provisions of the LDC. Staff has determined that this criteria has not been satisfied. According to section 20-0104 of the LDC, the purpose of the LDC is to implement Fargo's comprehensive plan and related policies in a manner that protects the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Fargo. The GO 2030 comprehensive plan targets this area as being a walkable mixed-use center. It also identifies Veterans Boulevard as an active living street, which are key corridors that prioritize mobility for all modes of travel with an improved streetscape that enhances the quality and visual appearance of neighborhoods. Staff finds that the billboard style off-premise advertising does not align with the principles of development outlined within the GO 2030 comprehensive plan due to the anti-pedestrian nature of such billboards. Criteria 2 asks if the proposed conditional use at the specified location contributes to and promotes the welfare or convenience of the public. Staff has determined that this criteria is not satisfied. Staff contends that the proposed billboard scale sign is not compatible with the intended development pattern of the area and removes the predictability other developers in the surrounding area have invested in. Therefore, the conditional use permit would cause injury to the value of the neighboring properties and would remove encouragement to develop in accordance with the principles of walked mixed-use centers. Criteria 3 asks if the proposed conditional use causes substantial injury to the value of the property in the neighborhood in which it is to be located. Staff has determined that this criteria is not satisfied. Staff finds that the proposed sign is of a size and scale that could create aesthetic concerns which could lead to injury of property value. The City of Fargo has many conditional overlays along arterial roadways south of Interstate 29 and prohibits off-premise advertising. As development along corridors in the southwest area of Fargo began, many of the areas are intended for commercial or mixed-use development and were zoned with a conditional overlay that established design standards for the developments, among other things, and also prohibits off-premise advertising entirely. The City of West Fargo is located across Veterans Boulevard southwest of the subject property. In West Fargo, off-premise advertising is prohibited by the zoning of the property and is not prohibited outside of heavy commercial and/or light industrial or heavy industrial zoning districts. Currently, no off-premise advertising is permitted in West Fargo along Veterans Boulevard and is unlikely to be allowed in the future. Criteria 4 asks if the location and size of the conditional use permit dominate the immediate neighborhood as to prevent the development and the use of neighboring property. Staff has determined this criteria is not satisfied. Staff suggests that the proposed size of the conditional use at the location is such that it will dominate the immediate neighborhood so as to prevent the development and the use of the neighboring property in accordance with the applicable zoning district regulations. The Urban Plains conditional overlay states that the intent is that all properties be designed to a human scale. Staff suggests that billboard-style signage oriented towards the motoring public is the opposite of human scale design. Staff is recommending denial of the conditional use permit as the proposal does not comply with Section 20-0909D and other requirements of the LDC. Staff did receive one comment regarding the project. A copy of this comment is in front of you. If you have any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioners, any questions for Maggie? Kylie, pardon me, Maggie.
You can ask Maggie too. It's fine.
Hey. Scott?
Please explain human scale signage.
When the plans talk about human scale that have been approved by the city of Fargo, they're talking about the stepping as far as heights of buildings in context with the corridor walkways. It gets to be pretty complicated, and I think we could probably talk about that at Brown Bag in the future.
Other questions?
I just like,
Go ahead.
I think the human scale, it has to do with the feeling of the surrounding buildings, the landscapes are conducive to a neighborhood feel, whereas the large billboards have more of a commercial and large arterial feel to them. So they seem therefore to be less based upon neighborhood. And I think that's it, you know, if you're around a bunch of big towers and big signs and big commercial buildings, you have a different feeling than if you're surrounded by homes and landscapes and walkways.
Art?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question, I guess, on historical issue. So were the two boards that are on Urban Plains right now, how were they done? Were they done as off-premise boards? Was that conditional use done? What's the status of those two?
That's correct. They both went through the conditional use permit process. I don't have the dates in front of me. Originally, 4 billboards had gone in front of the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission had denied all 4 of those billboards. The City Commission did approve the 1 billboard on Veterans Boulevard and 32nd Avenue South. I believe that was in 2015. In 2017, the other billboard on 32nd Avenue and 45th came in front of your commission, and that billboard was proposed to match the existing billboard on 32nd Avenue and Veterans Boulevard. It was also proposed to be on a lot that was undevelopable. It already has 2 stormwater management ponds on that. It did go through the conditional use permit process. Staff did actually recommend approval on that billboard.
So each time in a development like that with the rules saying that you can't have off-premise billboards, do you have to come in and apply for each separate lot, each separate area? It's not just overall for the development then?
So this Urban Plains area, their conditional overlay states that they need to come in for a conditional use permit for off-premise advertising.
For each one?
For each one, yes. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Becky, that got to my question.
I got your question. Any other questions for Kylie?
When the one was approved on 32nd and Veterans, did we hear a lot from West Fargo at the time?
I'm not sure. I was not here when that application came through. I don't know if Mark knows the history on that.
I don't believe the city of West Fargo reached out and gave any input on those signs.
But you did say that Fargo and West Fargo now are in agreement as to allowing large signs in that area?
So West Fargo does not allow off-premise advertising along Veterans Boulevard.
Right, and generally Fargo does not either.
Correct.
So were they in agreement when the other one was approved?
I think West Fargo still did not allow billboards at that time.
No, I'm
On their
guessing.
side, I don't know if they
Yeah,
had reached
okay.
out to Fargo, though.
All right.
My question is about the size of the signage. Did you work with or did the applicants, with it being off-premise advertising, if they were willing to do a different size or some other aspect, would that be something that would be allowable under the conditional use?
Because it's an off-premise sign, they would still have to come in for a conditional use permit,
Regardless
regardless
of
of the size, yes.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, I'd like to invite the applicant to speak.
Hello, I'm Mark Foss. I'll be speaking for John Crom and the Metro Sports Foundation today. We started the project back in 2015 with the application, as she mentioned earlier, with 4 boards. Once we went back and forth, the commission and the department pulled it back to 1 on kind of the basis of we're going to see how it goes. We built the first one 2015, that location on 32nd and Veterans Avenue. Then in 2017, built the second one to kind of bring that set, up to existence, and now we're looking to add the third piece coming in from Veterans. I know I've heard some concern about human scale, arterial roads. You know, Veterans is an arterial road by definition, so there is a lot of traffic there. Human scale for pedestrian look, we have winter here, so snow gets piled up by the side of the road. It makes walking kind of difficult. Also makes, you need to have stuff kind of up in the air to be seen. We want to get the word out for all the events that Shields Arena brings to the area, whether it's Baby Shark, whether it's concert, not just the Force games and boat shows and everything else out there, but that does bring a lot of traffic to the area, the surrounding businesses, the community in general. So we feel like this would be a good addition to help kind of get the word out of where we're at and where people can go, and especially after the COVID lockdown and everybody's been cooped up and looking for things to do while they're out driving around. It'd be a nice way to advertise to those people what's going on that maybe they didn't know about. The other two signs are just a hair under 300 square feet, I believe, which we would be willing to make some adjustments there. I think they're at 280 if I'm pulling off the top of my head. I think they're about a foot shorter both ways. So we're willing to change some design aspects. We just went with this design off the bat because for where it's placed, it's a convenient location where it's not going to take up really any usable area off the lot with what's already there. So I guess I'd be open to questions or
Any
comments,
questions?
concerns.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple questions. Are you involved in the sales, the advertising side?
I am a little bit.
I just had a couple questions on that. You mentioned Shields Arena. Do you guys anticipate? First of all, my daughter's going to get a kick that we talked about Baby Shark, so that's good. You gave me,
Baby Shark
you gave
it
me a
up.
win later. But what percentage do you expect Shields Arena to be of the advertising?
We try to keep one spot out of every minute for Shields Arena. So that's one, basically eighth of the rotation.
Okay. And I guess just a couple billboard questions for you. Do you see a difference in sales depending on the size of the structure?
As far as face size, yes. As far as height and, some of those things that can be fudged here or that, not really.
And what about sort of the visual appeal of the structure itself? I mean, is there any difference when you're working with clients based on if it's the pole or it's the monument?
There can be a little bit, the ones on both Veterans, 32nd Avenue, those two, we did really go over and above on the structure of them. We built them so they look like a monument sign. People notice, I think they appreciate the architecture a little bit, but as far as advertising, get your message out, I don't know if that comes into play as much as.
Are your rates the same for those signs as there are for other similar size signs?
No, those are, just that area in general pulls a little higher rate.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thanks.
Any other question, commissioners? If I may make a comment, because I've been on it through those other discussions. The other sign's in a little bit different. Urban Plains is a little bit of a unique development in the fact that it's kind of hard to designate where it starts and stops. The other two are monument signs, and they also have Urban Plains on them.
Sure.
My personal comment on this is just another electronic billboard. And again, it's a moneymaker because it other than Shields Arena, the other 7/8 of the minute are for sale. And so it's a little bit different to me than the monument signs are doing the same thing, but at least somebody knows that they can associate this with Urban Plains. This happens to be in the parking lot of a taco.
Caribou.
Huh?
It's Caribou.
Or, sorry, Caribou, whatever.
Though I do like tacos.
I don't coffee. But it's just an observation from my experience on the other signs. I
Sure.
think, and partially why those were looked at differently than this sign.
And I think we'd be willing to make some concessions on overall look and appeal. We're not opposed to that.
So, okay, commissioners, any other? Yes.
John Crum with Shields Arena, just a comment on that. And we purposely, and we looked at the Fargo Dome and the Ralph, and they sell other advertising as a revenue stream. It allows us in the building and remind everyone. Back in 15 and 17, part of the strategy was to help Shields Arena financially to move forward. It allows us to package things differently. Mark does help us, and this is another avenue for us to draw in additional new revenue. Costs don't change. The tenure of the building's not changing. This is a non-tax funded building, so these things really make an impact to us when we do it. It also is touching a whole nother market that will allow us to draw those fans in. You know, we successfully had 33 games, which was great this year, and we look to expand into new events. So we would make the concessions if needed from a design standpoint. We don't see a big penalty of where it's getting placed. It is a different area, but you know, if you looked at Land Company and Urban Plains Land Company, has kind of transitions over the course of the last 12 years from what it originally concept was to what it is now.
Many times. Any other questions for John or anybody else?
I'd just like to make a comment. Now, signage has been a huge issue, as we all know, going on and on and on and on for decades. And it's been really difficult to get any kind of overview as to how we want to see our city. Whether we want to have those kind of billboards you can pull up on the boulevard and, you know, advertise the pig roast, or what it is that we want to see in our communities. So it seems that we've come a long way in establishing some standards, and that to approve this would be going backwards, and it would be opening ourselves for more and more cases that would be similar to this one. So I would be in opposition to approving this, just because it would open a further can of worms.
Any other comments for the applicants? Okay, seeing none, I'll open it up for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to speak for or against this? Anybody? Okay, I'll close the public comment period. Any additional discussion, commissioners? Are you ready to act?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the findings and recommendations of staff, and hereby move to deny the conditional use permit to allow off-premise advertising.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, commissioners, or are we ready to vote?
Just say that I find it, you know, the city tries to have some standards with regard to signage, and I think that's really important too. But just like our other ordinances where we had restrictions on where you could conduct like certain businesses like gun sales, the state legislature came in and just wiped it out. And in the case of the one signage exception to all of this, the city, is political advertisement. Because when trying to force candidates to abide by the signage requirements, one state legislator by the name of Jim Casper came in and wiped that out, say you can put any size anywhere, any place, if it's political advertising. So it's a little frustrating when people in Bismarck decide to just dismiss everything we do. But I would agree in this case that we would not want to make an exception.
All right. Any further discussion?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate Don's comments. I think we would be opening up a can of worms. You know, this is a thoroughfare, and maybe it shouldn't be to human scale, but I know I wasn't on the committee that spent hours and hours and hours of trying to figure out our signage regulations. And, you know, if we do this, then I would suspect that there will be many others that would like to also do it as well. And I think they'd certainly have that right. And then, you know, it would creep across the street, I'm sure, as well.
Thank you. All right. See no further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Schneider,
Aye.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Holtz,
Aye.
Schirling,
Yes.
Tassa,
Aye.
Morgan,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Aye. Motion carries to deny the conditional use permit. All right, moving on to item number 4 on the agenda. A hearing on the application requesting a zoning change from MR2 multi-dwelling residential to DMU, downtown mixed use, with a conditional overlay on Lot 1, Block 1, Craig's Oak Grove, Second Edition. Aaron?
Thank you, and good afternoon. So as Commissioner Gunkelman just mentioned, this is item 4. As a request for zone change to MR2, or from MR2 to DMU with a conditional overlay. Subject property is located at 515 Oak Street North in Fargo. This is located at the south end of Horace Mann neighborhood, just northeast of our location, about a third of a mile from City Hall here. The applicant is Jesse Craig, being represented today by Jordan Craig, should you have any questions for the applicant. And before I jump in too much more, I just wanted to note that you may recall that this item was on the agenda last month. Just as a discussion item, this was originally, the applicant had originally applied for a PUD, planned unit development, at this location, but that application was withdrawn by the applicant in favor of the zone change that's on your agenda for consideration here today. So just to make that clarification that that PUD request has gone away, and this is a brand new application in front of you here today. And so the intent of this application, this zone change, is to accommodate residential redevelopment of the subject property. The subject property is currently vacant. There's some photos on the screen here of how the site looks today. There were a number of blighted residential structures on this property, but they have been demolished about 5 years ago, I believe. The applicant intends to construct a 3-story multi-dwelling residential building on the subject property, which would contain 21 dwelling units, including 9 one-bedroom units and 12 two-bedroom units, along with 31 indoor parking spaces. The image on your screen here shows the proposed layout that the applicant would like to develop. The footprint of the dwelling units would be on the north and the south, or excuse me, on the west, which is on the left and the bottom of the red box there, and then the indoor parking on the upper right-hand side of that box. Here's also a rendering provided by the applicant showing the development intent. And so the proposed EMU zoning district would accommodate the proposed development, but would also allow for a greater intensity of development than what the applicant is looking to construct at this location. And so as such, the proposed conditional overlay is intended to tailor the development regulations to the specific development that the applicant is proposing. And so included in your staff report is a list of conditions that are proposed to be placed on this property using the conditional overlay. Just a quick summary here. I'll just run through quick. The land use would be prohibited to only allow household living. This is strictly a residential project. Residential density would be restricted to 35 units per acre maximum. The downtown mixed use zoning district doesn't have a maximum density. Setbacks would be set at 10 feet and 5 feet, minimum 10 feet on the street and front, 5 feet on the rear and interior side. Building coverage would be restricted to 83% of the lot area. Building height would be restricted to 45 feet maximum, which is consistent with the allowable height in the current MR2 zoning district. Parking, there would be a minimum parking requirement of 1.45 parking spaces per unit. And then there would be some requirements for landscaping, including street trees and open space landscaping. Landscaping requirements are exempt in the DMU zoning district otherwise. Additionally, in the staff report, there are some additional design standards, things like requirements for bike parking, sidewalk connections to building entrances, entrances that face public streets, brick and stone exterior walls. As was shown on the rendering there, the applicant intends to develop this in a way that's consistent with the historic character of the neighborhood, using brick and stone on the exterior and proposing to do kind of a brownstone type look to this this property. And so overall, staff finds that the proposal does meet all the applicable requirements of the Land Development Code and is consistent and in keeping with the GO 2030 Comprehensive Plan. There was a neighborhood meeting held last month on April 26th, which was mentioned at last month's meeting as well. Had about 6 residents show up to the meeting and talk with the applicant and staff about this project. There was some apprehension regarding the proposed density here. You may recall that the applicant had originally proposed some type of a townhome type development and is now coming forward with a kind of a stacked unit concept in lieu of the side-by-side townhome concept. But overall feedback was largely positive, especially in relation to the aesthetic of the building and the type of design that the applicant is going for here. Additionally, we did receive 1 letter of opposition, which is included in the staff report. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have for staff. Staff is recommending approval as outlined within the staff report. Thank you.
Any questions for Aaron, commissioners? Rocky?
Thanks, Aaron. I think we've been well versed on this property, come back many times, but I do want to make note that this is the last block before we get to single-family zoning. And so as our downtown zoning creeps into single-family zoning, I guess I would like staff to give us some more guidance or set up a process where we can develop more guidance on what is the next step for DMU. Because I think the residents there want to know that as well. How far are we anticipating? What happens if somebody comes in on the next block and starts buying up homes and has this in mind? And so I think some of that would just give a lot of more stability to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Any other questions for Dawn?
Yeah, a question. With the MR2, the multiple dwelling residential, that's kind of what we've been anticipating. When I think about downtown mixed use, I think about possibility of commercial and also the lower requirements for parking. So why is it that it's being switched from the MR2 to the DMU regarding those 2 issues?
Yeah, so the applicant is proposing, a certain development type which would not be allowed in the MR2 zoning district. It wouldn't meet the density requirements or the parking requirements. And so the request to rezone to DMU would accommodate the type of development that the applicant is looking for. And so the conditional overlay is also being applied to that DMU zoning district to ratchet down the intensity of development that would otherwise be allowed in the DMU. And so there is, a maximum residential density of 35 units per acre, as well as some parking minimums of 1.45 parking spaces per unit. In the MR2 zoning district, parking would be required at a ratio of, I think, 2.25 parking spaces per unit. And so it is kind of a bit of a compromise between the MR2 and the DMU. The property, is currently located right between DMU and MR2 zoning. You'll see to the north and the west is MR2 currently, to the south and the east is DMU. And so it is kind of in staff's mind, a little bit of a transition, between the south and the downtown and the north and the, transitioning into that single family neighborhood.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? I'd invite the applicant to speak, if so wishes.
Hello, I'm Jordan Craig. I'm here representing Jesse Craig. I can definitely help answer any questions that you guys may have. I'm not as well versed on this project as Jesse Craig is, of course, but I will help with whatever I can. I don't really have much else to speak on, though I know you guys know quite a bit about this project, probably more than I do at this point, unfortunately.
Any questions, commissioners? Anything need to clarify or anything? All right, thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that, you guys.
I'd open it up to the public. I'll open up the public comment on this project. Anybody from the public wish to speak for or against this project? See none, I'll close the public comment. Any additional questions, commissioners, or are we ready to act? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move approval
I have a
of staff
motion.
recommendation.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Holtz,
No.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Tassa. Aye. Morgan,
Aye.
Schirling,
Yes.
Schneider,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to item 5, a hearing on an application requesting a zoning change from SR4 Single Dwelling Residential and PI to Single Dwelling Residential and PI Private Institutional with boundaries of the proposed Meadowview addition. Donald, clarify that.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. As Commissioner Gunkelman has stated, this is the Meadowview addition, which is a major plat and a zone change for the eastern half of the current Bison Meadows Second Edition, located here on 70th Avenue South and University Drive South. These lots are all undeveloped. There is no infrastructure in the streets there. Bison Meadows was a second edition, was approved a couple of years ago as a large 70-acre development. The western half is now getting more and more developed, a lot of houses being built here. But the developer, what he's doing here is really just rearranging the lots a little bit, changing the lot widths. Overall, lot widths are larger. There are actually 20 fewer lots in the proposed plat than there are now. As Commissioner Gunkelman said, you see zone change from SR4 and PI to SR4 and PI, and you think, gee, that's about the same. It is. What's happening is that the Park District owns a lot over here. It's not strictly a park in terms of there's no playground equipment or soccer fields. There is a trail that runs through there, but it's a park-owned property, and the lot lines will change a little bit. So whenever we do a large-scale replat like this, we just have a rezone with it so we don't end up with 2 feet of SR4 in the PI, something. So it's just a procedural thing. We do it. The zoning isn't actually changing from what it is now. It's just getting rearranged a little bit. As we said, the zoning here is the SR4. You see the park-owned lot here has 2 accesses to the street. Those will remain. Here are some views from a little different perspective than you usually get. These are from standing up here. There's a bike trail up here. So we're standing up in this northeast corner instead of just standing on 70th Street. This is looking south towards 70th Avenue down there. This is the levee that's there. And this is looking across the property a couple different directions. This is along the north edge here. These are the currently developed residences. 15th Street South is right here. So it's obviously a vacant area, no development there. This plat is in 2 parts. There's a lot of lines on this plat, but there's a lot in 2 parts here. Basically, the lots, look at the 2 as we combined them here. So into one project. So pretty much the lots that are around the outside here on the curves, these overall get a little larger in terms of width and area. And these lots that are in the smaller blocks get a little more even. They are currently a little more varied in lot width within the block, and here they're getting a little more uniform in lot width. And there is a chart in your staff report that compares the existing to the proposed lot widths and evaluates that situation. Also, a difference from the current plat is, as you see here, the street curves around and does not connect to 70th Avenue South. In the proposed plat, that street does get straightened out, you might say, and connect down here to 70th Avenue South, providing a little more relief for traffic, a little more access for the traffic. And that street gets renamed to Meadowview Drive South as part of this plat. So the existing 69th Avenue remains. And again, these are undeveloped. The street name change does not affect the existing lots on the west side of 15th Street South. We did have a public meeting, a virtual public meeting at the request of the developer. None was required for this project. We didn't get any participants except the developer and staff, but we held it nonetheless. And we also did receive a few questions and comments from the neighborhood. Staff did respond to those. We did not receive any opposition to the proposed project. Mr. Jim Bullis of Eagle Ridge Development, representing the project, is with us this afternoon and may wish to address the commission. Just so the commission knows, we did, both city staff and the developer did coordinate with Fargo Park District. They're also an applicant on this project. And their park-owned area isn't changing, it's just the accesses are getting rearranged a little bit. So with that, staff's recommendation is stated in the staff report and shown on your screen. The recommendation is for approval. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
All right. Any questions for Donald, commissioners?
I have a question, Donald, regarding, so we just recently had an application where a park zone was zoned park and the residents thought a park was gonna go there.
Yep.
And so how do we differentiate between, this is a park zone, but this is going to be zoned housing? And so I assumed that a park would be going there, right? Because it's,
A park is already there. Yeah, so that's this lot out here, ma'am, that lot is park owned right now.
but I think in the one diagram, the park was bigger, correct? No?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
This part of the park, what's happening, this part of the park here is staying the same size.
Okay.
And then these access lots here, you see these little green fingers they move a little bit because the overall lots are getting rearranged, but they remain their 40-foot width, which is the required width for the park district. So the park gain or loss is zero. They just moving around a little bit there.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Donald.
Mr. Bullis might have any more comment on that if he addresses the commission.
Donald, could you address the difference between the 2007 growth plan and how that ends up? You know, what's the purpose of the growth plan diagram versus, how it ends up happening? I think that's where the confusion is when people.
Oh, I see, okay. I see what you're talking about. Let me look at that for that. Yeah, so you're looking at that growth plan diagram on page 2, right? That shows the great big park. Okay. Again, those growth plan diagrams are a general area. They're not a specific thing like zoning. So that was part of the platting that was done. Actually, originally, there was a Bison Meadows first edition that was never built, and then that was replatted into Bison Meadows second. So that is just indicated as proposed park and green space, and that at the time, this park area here was determined to meet that requirement. So this is just continuing that, ma'am.
Okay. I'd invite the applicant to speak. If anybody has any questions for Mr. Bullis?
Thank you, Commissioners. As Donald said, I'm Jim Bullis. I'm here on behalf of Chris Thompson. I can't think of anything useful to add or to say after this, but if you have any questions, I'll sure try and answer them.
Any questions?
I'll ask one because I got asked by a resident near there, I guess. Could you explain why you're doing this action, I guess? And then explain, I know you guys developed out there as well. Is this based off, different market data you got off what's selling or not, or what the market's seeing? And just, if you could just walk us through that so we'd understand.
Yeah, one of the biggest reasons that Chris is getting a little bit bigger lot is he's finally listening to John and I. And he was trying to cram in his houses as tight as he could, and it just doesn't, you don't leave any room between them to get equipment even around. If you don't build them all in a row, you can hardly access the backyard to grade these homes. So, and when he increases the size of these lots just a couple feet, really it's just to make a little bit better looking neighborhood. A couple feet aren't crucial to specials in these size lots. And I think it just gets you a little better layout. As Donald indicated, we're going down about 20 units in density. It just better look and feel is really all we're doing. And better access than to 70th.
Thanks.
You could fit a lawnmower in between. Some of those are tight. You can't even fit a lawnmower in between.
Yeah, it just gets a little too tight if you don't,
Yeah,
You mean you can justify buying a rider?
I don't think you need a rider on these.
Any other questions, commissioners?
I'd just like to make a comment. It seems like it's an improvement, especially with traffic management. The way the roads were previously, it seems like they could bottleneck a lot, and there'd be a lot of extra traffic in front of homes that don't need it. So this is great. I think it's really a good thing to have this access to 70th Avenue South.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, thank you, Jim. I'll open it for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to speak for or against this project? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. Any additional discussion, or are we ready to act? Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval as staff recommendation.
I have a motion, can I get a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Tossa,
Aye.
Morgan,
Aye.
Schneider,
Aye.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Foltz,
Aye.
Schirling,
Yes.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to item 6 on the agenda. A hearing on an application requesting a plat of Radio Addition, a plot of part of the northwest quarter of Section 5. Donald.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. This property is located at 5702 52nd Avenue South. That's the corner of 52nd Avenue and Veterans Boulevard. This may look familiar to you from starting last in November of 2020. The applicant, Mr. Volmuth, brought forward a request to do a growth plan amendment on this. There was some discussion at the commission for a couple of commission meetings there, and Mr. Volmuth revised his plan to just plat the property in the current commercial zone under the current commercial land use designation. So you're just looking at just a plat. That request for the growth plan amendment is gone. That's not part of this anymore. That was withdrawn. So it's just a straightforward plat here. As noted, the property is zoned general commercial, which allows quite a variety of development options there. This is one more. So this part of this is Veterans Boulevard here. It's developed in a limited way. It's not the full width of Veterans Boulevard, obviously. These pictures are taken from down here where 53rd comes in, just looking across the property in a couple different directions. You all recognize this property as having the several radio towers of the radio station. I believe it's KFNW is there. The plat creates 10 lots arranged like this, bringing in 53rd Avenue South to a cul-de-sac here, matching 53rd Avenue. And there are negative access easements along 52nd Avenue South and Veterans Boulevard, which limit the accesses. That means you can't turn in off the street there. So there is an access easement here that provides access to a couple of these lots due to the negative access easements there. But again, just a fairly straightforward plat of this area for general commercial development. The recommended motion is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. The recommendation is for approval. Mr. Nate Volmuth of Goldmark is with us this afternoon and may wish to address the commission. Thank you, commissioners.
All right. Commissioners, any questions for Donald? See no questions. Invite Nate to the stand.
Thank you, Commissioners. Nate Volmuth with Goldmark Design Development. I don't have much to add. I'm just going to add maybe a couple clarification items. We did change the zoning or decide to leave the zoning as is to commercial. And it's not our intention, but we have discussed with planning the possibility of doing conditional use permits for industrial uses in those locations. If those types of buyers or projects come forward. It's not how we're marketing it necessarily, but it is our intention to potentially explore those opportunities on a case-by-case basis. We are We do have a infrastructure request in currently to improve Veterans down just past 53rd Avenue South, and also to improve 53rd Avenue South into the property, which will hopefully start this fall and probably end up next spring or summer. And I believe one other piece is there is a billboard on that hard corner right now that is within the right of way, which we are in discussions with the owners of that to have that to be removed. It had a land lease, but the lease is expired, so most likely that billboard will be removed. And I at this point there isn't any intention of putting it back in on that property. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions for Nate?
Nate, are these, the access roads, are those gonna be private roads then, or what, how does that work to connect the lots?
Yep, the back, I'm not sure which lot numbers they are, Donald, if you can.
They are 4, 5, and
Yep.
4 and 5 here.
4 and 5 would have access from a private road that loops around. The utilities would loop around as well. Those would be installed privately and connect up to the city provided utilities, which we've discussed with Brenda and her team as well.
And Commissioner Rosenberg, I would add that they would have an agreement for the maintenance of that road and the maintenance of the easement there, which is, they would have that. We would require them to have that. They would probably have it anyway, obviously, but we would require them to have that. So
And the cul-de-sac, though, is public?
The cul-de-sac, yes, sir, that's correct. The cul-de-sac 53rd is public for that. And we did, as Mr. Vomuth stated, we did review that with fire as well to provide to verify they had sufficient access there for their vehicles, emergency access.
Rocky.
Thanks, Nate. I think I asked you this similar question last time on this property, but on both on Veterans and then sort of just to the east where the drain connects to 52nd, the bike paths end there at 52nd as you go to the north. And I guess I would just encourage, I don't know what the drain plan is there to connect down to Deer Creek, but both of those bike paths truncate at 52nd Avenue, and one goes right into your property here across 52nd. And so, I don't know, it'd sure be nice to have that pedestrian access down to Deer Creek that continue on along the whole drain. And so I know you're sort of just barely connected to the drain here, but I don't know if you have a response to that or that's a Donald question, but.
Well, did you have, I have one there, Mr. Vomuth.
I'll let you handle it.
Okay, sir. Just so you know, that's a good point to bring up, sir. Staff did meet with with MetroCog. They have a corridor study going for this, and staff, including our traffic engineer, Jeremy Gordon, did meet with them about configuring that so that the bike trail does continue along there and will actually, as I understand it, eventually the drain will be bridged somehow and the bike trail will pass underneath that and then continue its connections. I don't actually have a layout of that for you to show you, but yes, we did emphasize the connection of those bike paths, and we did coordinate with the Dan Farnsworth of MetroCog. He's the bike ped manager for MetroCog.
Thanks.
I guess
All right, any other questions for Nate?
John,
Yeah.
I do have one more question, or not question, but comment. The timeline for the towers to be pulled down, I believe, is going to start in July. And then I believe that the developer has started to clear some of that area down there, and there might be some clay being brought in because it's in the Lomar. So it isn't any construction activity happening, but they are starting to build that site up. So
yes, sir. If you look there there's actually a clay pile. You see that there's one edge of it and there's the other edge of it. It's the Lomar pile. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'll open it up for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to speak for or against this? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. All right, commissioners, are we ready to act? Any more discussion? I have a motion.
I move to approve with the motion in the staff report.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Holtz,
Aye.
Sherling,
Yes.
Morgan,
Aye.
Schneider,
Aye.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Tassa,
Aye.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, moving on to item 7. Hearing on the application requesting a conditional use permit to allow an alternative access plan for parking reduction on Lot 1, Block 1, Delta 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 Edition. Kylie,
Item number 7 is titled Delta 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 Edition and is located at 1313, 1315, and 1335 University Drive North. The applicant, Delta 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 NHC, is requesting a conditional use permit for an alternative access plan to reduce the required parking on site. There are 3 existing buildings which will be demolished. The applicant will construct a new sorority house, a group living use. The Land Development Code requires group living uses to provide 1 parking stall per 100 square feet of sleeping area. The sorority house, as proposed, would have 2,155 square feet of sleeping area. Without a parking reduction in place, the applicant would be required to provide a total of 22 parking stalls. The applicant is requesting a parking reduction of 8 parking stalls. The applicant would provide a total of 14 parking stalls. The applicant provided a parking study from Traffic Impact Group LLC, which shows that 14 parking stalls would be sufficient. Staff did receive an email from a neighboring property owner who is in support of the application. That email was laid down prior to this meeting. Based on the conditional use permit criteria of the LDC, staff is recommending approval with the following conditions shown on your screen. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, Andrew Thill is here for representing the project, and he can answer questions as well.
all right, any questions for Kylie? In our meeting the other day, we have an agenda review meeting. I brought it up that, and if you look at the other, on the following conditions, most of the fraternities and sorority houses around that area do not have enough parking, so they get it from the university. They usually have access to permits behind the alumni center. And I think we just want to be sure that there is some, that has been, I was at NDSU at the peak of the Greek system, and it's fun to see it coming back, especially the number of sororities, with 2 new, with the other sorority house building a new one, and this one. This is fun to see the activity at NDSU, so that was just, those conditions there are, I think we just want to make sure that those are met, so. Any other question, commissioners, for Kylie?
So if there isn't enough parking and somebody wants to park, so they're gonna have to pay for their parking pass in one of these lots. So the cost then is transferred to the student, if there's no parking available.
I think it depends. Sometimes we've seen it where the sorority house will take on that cost. That other projects have done that. I'm not sure if this would be a similar case. But typically when we propose that condition, that's a comment that we've gotten back, that the sorority or fraternity would take on that cost.
I guess that would be my recommendation, that if there's not enough parking, because they're asking for a decrease in parking, and if they need to go out and get parking, that they pay for it, we don't pass that on to the student.
I don't believe we can put that as a condition of
Yeah.
criteria in the conditional use permit. Sorry.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing is we just want NDSU to be aware that there's becoming more demand for that lot.
Well, in the past, we've also heard that Bison Turf is giving out their parking free, right?
Yeah, probably as long as you have a meal ticket and a beer.
Well, I mean, that was in that VERS application, if you remember. So the other thing I just wanted to ask, if there are two sororities houses that are being built, is that right?
The other one is the Kappa Deltas are rebuilding. That one is now torn down and under construction.
Is that just right around the corner from this one?
It's at the end of the block from
Yes.
the Alumni Center.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just south. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's on University and 13th Avenue North on the corner.
That's fun to see, the activity.
I have another question about the parking.
Yes.
So is what they're requesting for the reduction in parking, is that in line with what the other fraternities and sororities have? What is the parking for the other, do you happen to know that?
I don't know, and I don't know what their ratio was, but
I'm just
Something we
curious
can
how
look at.
they, you said they had a study conducted and they determined that that would be the appropriate. And I'm just kind of wondering how they arrived at that. Was that based on comparison with other fraternities and sororities or based on their enrollment? Maybe that's a question for the applicant.
I'd just like to make a comment. One of the things about the Roosevelt neighborhood is that it has had parking problems forever. And if there was some criterion established, it would have changed over the years, because when many of those fraternity houses were built, for instance, most of the students didn't have cars, and they provided almost no parking. So I don't know if there's been any kind of gradated change in the requirement for parking, but it certainly isn't universal for all the different buildings. I don't know if there's anyone who knows a lot more about it that would be willing to speak, but it seems to me that there really isn't any standard that blankets the fraternities and the sororities.
I was afraid Dawn was gonna bring up that when I was in school, we had horses, but she didn't quite go that far, but, all right. I'd invite the applicant to speak.
My name is Andrew Thill. I'm with Lowry Engineering, representing Tri-Delta, or Delta, if you will. Our client is pretty confident with the amount of parking that's there. Not all of the students will have cars. This is right next to campus, very easily within walking distance. These will all be NDSU students. They are providing bike racks for students who wish to bike to school. Kind of the new thing is these fat tire bikes. Students are biking all winter, which normally wasn't a thing, at one point in time, but we're seeing them all over now. There's a lot of parking around NDSU. NDSU has been continuously improving and adding parking over the years. So myself and our client do not have any concerns with this negatively impacting the neighborhood. If anything, it would almost help comparing 3 residential homes with not a lot of parking available to this one. Obviously more people living here, but providing actual parking spots. So if there's any more parking, I didn't actually perform the traffic impact study, but I can, the reference on what was acceptable came from the ITE parking generation manual, and it was at 0.8 spaces per bedroom, and they applied that to this facility and came up with that the 14 was adequate.
Any questions? Okay. I'll open it up for public comment. Anybody from the public wish to speak? There's nobody left in here. I'll close the public comment. All right, commissioners, are we ready to act? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Rosenberg.
Aye.
Tossa.
Aye.
Holtz.
Aye.
Morgan.
Yes.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Schirling,
Yes.
Gunkelman.
Aye, motion carries. All right, I think before we go any further, I'm gonna have Mark introduce our new planning
Thank you.
officer, Adam.
We have recently hired a gentleman by the name of Adam Martin to replace Maggie Squire as an assistant planner in the land use division of the city of Fargo. And he's from South Dakota. He has a land use planning background. He's from SDSU, but I don't think he has much affiliation when it comes to cheering for the sport. So I think we can turn him into an NDSU fan. So we'd like to welcome him here.
All right, welcome, Adam.
So did you get him a Bison shirt then?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Quick story. He came to tour the office Friday before the big game, and he wasn't even aware that the game was going on. So he's good.
Well,
It's a smart applicant, you know.
he's, well, we could convert him. All right, Aaron, we've got a discussion on the upcoming growth plan amendment.
Yes, this is item E1. This is just more or less a quick FYI. We've got I guess maybe just to start with, over the past couple of years, this city has been working with Houston Engineering, primarily our engineering department, with Houston Engineering on developing a stormwater master plan for kind of a portion of the southwestern growth area of the city. And, you know, in quick summary, the idea here is to develop a regional stormwater system for this entire area, as opposed to the more traditional stormwater being handled kind of piece by piece or development by development. So there's a particularly low-lying area of land that made a lot of sense for this type of growth plan. And so as part of that, the master planning for the stormwater infrastructure, there was a need to update some of the future land use assumptions. And so I think we saw this as an opportunity to go ahead and update and tweak some of the existing, or some of the future land uses as noted in the 2007 growth plan. Obviously, the 2007 growth plan was adopted about 14 years ago, and so there's been a lot of changes in things like policy and just context and conditions over the years. And so what we're doing is since we're taking a look at these land uses anyway, we're looking to move forward with a staff-initiated growth plan amendment in the near future to basically take the 2007 growth plan and update it based on some of those changing conditions. So things like the Go 2030 comprehensive plan, for example, this regional approach to stormwater management provides some new opportunities. This map here on the screen shows the location of that regional pond, and then the lines coming off that pond are open ditch stormwater channels, and so there's new opportunities for things like bike trails, for example, to run along those channels. And so also the FM diversion kind of providing some limitations on growth in the future. Also parks and school facilities, their needs are something we want to take a look at, and then just changes in the transportation network as well. So included in your packet there, I think this version is a slightly updated version from the one that's included in the packet here, but this graphic here just shows the kind of side by side the 2007 growth plan versus what's currently being proposed as a starting point, if you will, for some of those future land uses. I won't go through this in a whole lot of detail. Again, the point of this item today was just to make you all aware of the fact that we're working on this. Over the next month or so, staff plans on meeting with the property owners within this area, as well as some of the surrounding residents and owners, stakeholders like the parks, school districts, and anybody else that's interested in this area, to get some feedback. And then we anticipate there being some tweaks to this map based on some of the feedback that we receive over the next month. And then hopefully in July, we'll bring this back in front of you as an actual growth plan amendment request. And so, again, just wanting to make you aware, we will be having a public open house probably in about 2 or 3 weeks. You'll likely see an email from us noting the time and place of that here shortly. We do plan on meeting with some of the landowners here next week already. And we've already gotten some comments from the school district and park district staff as well. So maybe just some of the quick highlights. Again, the stormwater channels and stormwater infrastructure you can see on the map there in green. Also, this kind of silver box, I think it's a purple box on the version in your packet there, is kind of a town center type concept. That relates, for example, to the Go 2030 comprehensive plan and some of those concepts for walkable mixed use centers and nodes outside of the downtown area. So those are just a couple examples of some of the concepts that we're hoping to integrate into the future land use plan here. So again, this is just an informational item. We're not looking for any action here tonight, but would certainly appreciate any comments that you all might have. We're not requesting comments today, but as you kind of take a look at this materials and see some emails come out from us, if you have questions or comments, always feel free to reach out or to attend the public open house, which again we'll notify you of in the coming weeks here. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
I was just interested in that 52nd Avenue there, that green space with, it looks like a lot of water. That isn't the lake, is it, that's being planned?
It is, yep. So it's a very large pond. Some people call it a small lake, yes.
Yeah, and that's the one that's actually gonna have beaches?
I don't know if we're that far along in the design. I don't know if
Oh, okay,
Brenda
well,
has some.
I've been hearing
details.
about it because of the parks.
Yeah.
And they were saying that, one of the difficulties is the sand as it moves in and out.
Yeah.
And then to put it back where it's wanted for the beaches and.
Yep. That was one of the hopes and the priorities of doing this work and taking a closer look at the future land uses and some of the opportunities. We have been working with the Park District staff. They've been kind of involved in these conversations over the past year or two, and in looking at what are some recreational opportunities with a large pond like this or a small lake, and sand being one of them. And I don't know, Brenda, if you have any comments relating to the sand.
So I guess I don't know if I have any comments related to the sand. I mean, it's going to be a large pond/lake. They've been working with the DNR to make sure that we can have vibrant fishing opportunities there. I think, we're slowly working with the park on different ways to activate it and make this a very active area. We've got all the drains that can have trails, so we'll have a large amount of connectivity to it. And so it's a very exciting thing to have happen. And so we continue to think about different ways to activate that space.
I just thought it sounded really interesting to have bathers and swimmers and paddlers and fishermen. So
I think it brings like Bluemont Lakes brought a water element. And Brenda, does this, from an engineering for developers and stuff, does this make your job easier if everything they're doing is tying into drains and they're not having retention ponds? Or are they still gonna have to have retention?
So with this concept, when we were looking at this area with the drain, you can see how far the drain is still to the west. So the drain is actually west of Veterans Boulevard there. And so as we were looking at ways to do the stormwater, this option is a very cost-effective way to be able to service that storm sewer. And with the open drains, what that does is that removes the retention requirements. So they may have a drain within their development, but then that takes away the need to do on-site retention, and it meets the water quality and the water retention requirements.
Thank you.
And so one of the things, if I can even add, is we've even added in just some ideas of how it can meander and then add some park facilities along that meandering. So there are quite a few options as the developers do start to master plan their areas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Rocky?
I should probably mention this because I mentioned it on the last end, but I guess I'd encourage you to make sure that it connects to the trail network on the north side of 52nd Avenue, where it truncates right at the drain right now.
We're gonna get Rocky a water bike.
You don't bike
You-
up there, do
Go
you?
up and down. Really fat tire.
You know.
And you know, one thing I do know, and I was gonna jump in on this too, is at Jeremy, they did apply for a grant to do the trail. So there will be a trail that comes up now along Deer Creek and along the drain and comes up and connects in. But that is one of the things, right now they're doing, I don't know if you're aware, they're doing the Veterans Boulevard corridor study. And so that's the one thing they're looking at, is connecting those trails and getting that connectivity. And then also how to get the connectivity along the drain if we use box culverts over bridges, so.
Great.
It'll be all over Fargo.
Someone's got to say it.
Well, in normal years, this will thaw out by the 4th of July. This year, it's gonna be really warm by now, but that's good. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
All right, we have one other item on the agenda, and I think I might take, I will be, after today, this is my last meeting as chair. And I'd like to thank everyone. I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'm not leaving the planning commission, but I've thoroughly enjoyed chairing this. It was interesting for the better part of a year, half of my term, with COVID, doing it remote. I was sitting here by myself with all my friends, and you guys were all at home eating snacks and you know, in your pajamas, and I was here, and it was interesting. I mean, we managed to carry on the work that we needed to do. Occasionally after the meeting, I would text Rocky and I'd say, Scott and I have been friends for years, and I'd say, Scott would put a picture up, and it wasn't even Scott. I mean, it was Scott, and so I said, Scott would be talking, but his lips weren't moving. Now I'd be looking at the screen, so afterwards I'd text Rocky and say something about that. But I mean, we made it work. And it's truly fun to be back in person. We definitely get better discussion going on a topic. And yet we did manage to do what we needed to do for a year. And I thank everybody for the confidence you put in me. And thank you. I'm not going away. I'm still on the commission. And so now I'll get to give somebody else a bad time. But at this time, 2 people have expressed interest in chair and vice chair. At this time, I'll call on Scott.
Well, Chairman Gunkelman, thank you very much for the work you put in. You know, and the last time we nominated chair and vice chair, the nominating committee met. This time, we kind of had an imaginary nominating committee, and I was imagining it in my mind and who would be the best person to do this. And so the one name that came up for vice chair was Miranda Tassa. I think she'd do an excellent job. And the other one that I'm trying to remember who the other person, Rocky Schneider for chair. That's right. And so I would place a nomination, Rocky Schneider for chair and Miranda Tassa as vice chair.
All right. We could take these one by one, and we could start with Miranda. I would ask for a motion to accept her as the vice chair.
So moved. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Better not be. Okay. And actually, we do need a roll call vote. Yes, a roll call vote, please. I was kidding.
Morgan,
Aye.
Tasa, oh, sorry, you don't get to vote. Rosenberg,
Aye.
Schneider,
Aye.
Holtz,
Aye.
Schirling,
Yes.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Let's see. Aye. Motion carries. All right, and now I'll ask for a motion for Rocky for
So moved.
for first chair. I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Schirling,
Yes.
Stoffren,
Aye.
Morgan,
Yes.
Tasa,
Aye.
Holtz,
Aye.
Rosenberg,
Aye.
Gunkelman.
Aye, motion carries, and they finally brought me a gavel for the first time. I don't think we've had one here ever. I don't know where they found it in the archives. But would I actually pass this on to you, or should I, then you can close the meeting?
Oh, sure, I can do that.
I have a question first for John.
Are we questioning his eligibility?
The question is for you. I'm just wondering if, depending upon how long you stay on the planning commission, that in the future you would become the chair again. So how many years are you gonna have to stay on the planning commission to attain that?
We were looking in the bylaws, and the bylaws are pretty slim on our terms and our, I don't know, maybe, we'll see.
Well, I mean, it does rotate around, right? And if you stayed on long enough, eventually you'd come back.
There is a ramp over here, so I could have Rocky push me up the ramp, so.
All right, well, let us know.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for serving.
Well, thank you, everybody, for putting your confidence in me, and I'll try to represent the commission well. Thank you, John, for your time as chair. And, John and I have been on here, started at the same time together, and so we were with the chair that was on for a very long time, and after that, we had a good discussion as a commission that it's probably healthy to, change over chairs we decided every 2 years, because it really takes a while to learn, go through that process and learning from staff and everything else. So we've generally accepted the 2-year cycles, but that's always open for debate too if there are other discussions. So otherwise, John knows what to do with a hammer better than me, but they didn't trust you with the gavel. You've seen his thumb, know? Anyways, I'd take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion adjourned.